Boomers, tja boomers, din harspachakawana masamani pros. Mihas mi malkami boradi. The forest was silent, a silence as sharp as glass. Jason, the newly turned vampire, smelled the metallic tang of blood on the cool night breeze, but it wasn't the blood of humans or werewolves that haunted him. It was the scent of Linda, the warrior woman, his beloved, trapped in a deadly snare. An ancient spell bound her, her ancestral werewolf powers flaring but weakened, almost extinguished. Would Jason save her in time? Or would the dark magic of the enemy vampires consume her before he could reach her? Time was running out. Linda's life, and perhaps the future itself, hung by a thread. Darkness cloaked the forest like a velvet shroud. Gigantic trees, their branches twisted like the arms of sleeping monsters, seemed to whisper secrets to the cold wind that snaked between them. Jason, with his heightened vampire senses, felt the frantic beat of his heart, a heart that pounded not only with fear, but with the overwhelming passion he felt for Linda. He could smell her, sweet and woody, mingling with the damp scent of earth and the pungent fragrance of the dark magic that imprisoned her. Linda, with eyes like the night sky and hair black as a raven's wing, was in danger. The spell that held her was ancient, very ancient, as old as the legends of the Native Americans who inhabited this forest. It was a powerful magic, woven with threads of darkness and fueled by the hatred of the enemy vampires, those who sought to dominate the world without mercy or compassion. They knew of the ancestral strength that ran in Linda's veins, a strength that connected her to the wolves, a power capable of defeating them. But Linda was weakened, trapped by a force that drained her energy, her life force, with every passing second. Her eyes, normally so bright, were dull, filled with a pain that Jason felt in every beat of his own vampiric heart. Jason was no ordinary vampire. Newly transformed, he still carried the vivid memory of his past life, of his humanity. And it was this humanity that drove him, that made him capable of feeling such deep compassion for Linda. He wasn't a cold and calculating vampire like his master, Kale, a cruel and power-hungry being who was the true instigator of this trap. Jason, despite his new nature, still fought against the darkness that threatened to consume him. He wanted to save Linda not only out of love, but also to save himself, to redeem himself from the shadow Kale cast over him. The trap was a circular clearing, surrounded by ancient and imposing trees, whose roots seemed to intertwine to form an underground labyrinth. In the center of the clearing, Linda was trapped, floating slightly above the ground. Her body, normally full of energy and strength, now emanated a frightening fragility. The dark symbols etched into the ground around her glowed with a sinister light, pulsating with the malevolent energy of the spell. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, awaiting the outcome. Jason felt time slipping away. The dark magic that bound Linda was strengthening with each passing moment. He could sense the presence of other vampires. Kale's servants, circling the clearing, their icy gazes fixed on their prey. They were like shadows, disguised by the darkness of the forest, ready to attack if Jason tried to approach. But Jason wouldn't back down. The love for Linda, this feeling so pure and intense, was stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness that surrounded him. It was an unstoppable force, a burning flame that burned in his chest, even as a vampire. Suddenly, a howl cut through the silence of the night, a long, anguished howl filled with pain and despair. It was the call of a wolf somewhere in the forest, sensing Linda's pain. Was it an omen, a sign of help, or just a cruel coincidence? Jason cautiously approached the trap, his senses on high alert, his heart pounding in his chest, a mixture of hope and apprehension. He needed to act fast. Linda's fate, and perhaps his own, depended on his actions in this crucial moment. The battle for Linda's soul and Jason's heart was about to begin, amidst the oppressive darkness of the forest and the insidious power of dark magic. The fight for survival was also a fight for love, a love that transcended the barriers between species and defied the darkness that threatened to swallow everything in its path. A shiver ran down Jason's spine. The wolf's howl still echoed in his ears, a cold echo that seemed to vibrate in the very earth. He crouched down, crawling between the thick roots of the trees, feeling the dark energy intensify with each step. With every meter closer to Linda, the feeling of danger grew exponentially, suffocating like a toxic fog. The symbols on the ground glowed with greater intensity, almost tangible, as if pulsating with a life of their own, malevolent and powerful. Linda, pale and weakened, floated in the center of the clearing, her dark eyes fixed on some distant point, as if struggling against an invisible force. The smell of dark magic was oppressive, almost physical, suffocating Jason with its perverse nature. Jason knew he needed to break the spell, but how? He wasn't a mage, just a newly turned vampire, still learning to control his new powers. His vampiric instincts told him to approach, to drain Linda's energy, feeding on her life force, but the love he felt for her was stronger than any primal instinct. He refused to hurt her, to take from her the last drop of energy. Suddenly, he felt a slight tremor beneath his feet. The earth began to vibrate, and a deep roar, even more intense than the previous howl, shook the forest. From the midst of the trees, a gigantic, imposing figure emerged. A colossal wolf, its eyes shining with a supernatural light. It was a wolf unlike any Jason had ever seen, almost a mythical entity, emanating an ancestral and devastating power. The wolf advanced towards the clearing, its powerful steps causing tremors in the ground, as if the earth itself were bowing before its strength. Fear mingled with hope in Jason's heart. Would the wolf be an ally, a messenger from Linda's ancestors? Or would it be another trap? Doubt haunted him, but the sight of the wolf fighting against the dark magic surrounding Linda filled him with a renewed sense of hope. The wolf positioned itself in front of the magic circle, and with a deep growl began to growl and howl, challenging the dark magic with a power that echoed through the forest. However, Kale's vampire servants emerged from the shadows, swift and relentless. They attacked the wolf, their fangs sharpened and their eyes gleaming with malice. The battle began, violent and brutal, a fight between dark magic and the untamed power of nature. The wolf faced the vampires with incredible ferocity, its supernatural strength defying the numerical superiority of its enemies. Jason watched the fight, torn between the need to help Linda and the impossibility of intervening directly. He knew that his presence could unbalance the fight, drawing the vampires' attention to himself. With each growl and howl, the energy of the forest seemed to tremble. The symbols on the ground shone brighter and brighter, and Linda seemed to weaken with each passing second. The fight was desperate, a whirlwind of claws, fangs, and dark magic, a deadly dance between light and shadow. Jason could feel the pressure of time, the pressure of Kale, who watched everything from afar, like an implacable god. He needed to find a way to help, a way to break the spell without putting himself at risk, and without harming the wolf or Linda. It was such a complex and delicate situation that it demanded of him all the intelligence, all the courage, and all the love that he possessed. The battle for Linda's soul and Jason's heart continued, increasingly intense, increasingly dangerous. The forest, a silent witness to so much violence, seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the outcome. The wolf's howl echoed through the forest, a wild sound that tore through the tense silence of the night. It was a sound of struggle, of suffering, but also of an unwavering strength, an ancestral force that refused to yield to darkness. Jason, hidden among the roots of the trees, watched the battle with his heart in his throat. The wolf, gigantic and imposing, faced several vampires alone, its movements quick and precise, a deadly dance of claws and fangs. Each blow of the wolf was a cry of defiance to the dark magic that imprisoned Linda, an act of resistance against Kale's dominion. Linda, in the center of the clearing, floated even weaker, her breath almost imperceptible. The spell crushed her, sucking her life force, leaving her on the brink of death. Jason felt her pain, as if it were his own, an ice pick piercing his vampiric heart. He had to act, he had to intervene, but he didn't know how, without endangering both the wolf and Linda. The fight was becoming uneven. The vampires were numerous, their movements quick and coordinated, like a single and implacable force. The wolf, despite its immense strength, was beginning to tire, its breath ragged and its movements less precise. Jason felt despair growing within him. A whirlwind of emotions overwhelmed him. Love for Linda propelled him, but the fear of defeat paralyzed him. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him, a desperate idea, but one that might be the only chance to save Linda. He remembered the words of an ancient shaman who had told him that the strength of the wolves was linked to the strength of nature, to the strength of the earth itself. Jason looked at the symbols on the ground, at the dark magic that radiated from the circle that imprisoned Linda. If the force of nature could break the spell, perhaps With a quick and decisive movement, Jason launched himself into the clearing. He ignored the vampires surrounding him, his attention entirely focused on Linda. No matter the risk, no matter the danger, he had to try. With his supernatural vampire strength, he began to tear up the roots of the trees around the clearing, dragging the earth and breaking the ground. It was hard work, slow and painful, but he didn't give up. With each root torn out, a piece of the spell seemed to break, the dark magic weakening. The wolf, seeing Jason's action, seemed to understand the plan. It changed its strategy, abandoning the direct fight and beginning to concentrate its attacks on the vampires who were trying to stop him. With its incredible strength and agility, the wolf skillfully dodged the vampire's blows, clearing the way for Jason. The symbols on the ground began to disintegrate, the dark magic gradually weakening. Linda, who had previously floated motionless, began to move, her eyes regaining the ancestral strength that inhabited her. Finally, with a last desperate effort, Jason tore out the last root, breaking the magic circle. The dark magic dissipated like smoke, leaving the clearing free. Linda fell to the ground, exhausted but alive. Jason approached her, his eyes full of relief and love. He embraced her, feeling the warmth of her body against his, the certainty of victory enveloping them. The wolf watched them from afar, a look of approval in its luminous eyes. The battle was won, but the fight for survival and the union between Jason and Linda was far from over. The threat of Kale and his vampires persisted, but now, with the combined power of love, ancestral strength, and nature, Jason and Linda had a new hope for a future together, a future free from the terror of darkness. The forest, freed from dark magic, seemed to sigh with relief, witness to the strength of love that had overcome the darkness. The wolf, with a final triumphant roar, brought down the last vampire, leaving it fallen and defenseless on the ground. Linda, freed from the spell, fell into Jason's arms, her eyes bright as stars, full of gratitude and love. The dark magic dissipated like smoke, leaving behind only the fresh smell of damp earth and the quiet of the forest. Jason held Linda in his arms, feeling his heart beat strongly, a frantic rhythm that mixed the relief of victory with the fear of what was yet to come. The wolf approached them, its penetrating gaze fixed on Jason. A subtle gesture, a light touch of its head on Jason's hand, and then, in a quick and unexpected movement, the wolf disappeared into the darkness of the forest, leaving them alone in the stillness of the night. Suddenly, a hissing sound cut through the silence, a cold, metallic sound that made Jason's body shiver. He carefully released Linda, searching for the source of the noise. He could feel the presence of something evil and powerful, approaching rapidly. It was a different feeling from the threat of Kale's vampires, something much older and more menacing. A shiver ran down Jason's spine, and Linda's hand gripped his tightly. From the midst of the trees emerged a figure shrouded in shadows, a nebulous and menacing form, slowly materializing in the clearing like a specter escaping from hell. The figure was tall, imposing, its silhouette undefined, almost ethereal, yet the gaze it emanated was cold and cruel, carrying centuries of wickedness and unimaginable power. It was a gaze that froze the soul, that pierced the very essence of being, leaving Jason and Linda paralyzed by fear. The figure did not approach, did not make any sudden movements, but its mere presence exuded an aura of destruction, of devastating power. The silence of the forest became heavy, suffocating. The air vibrated with a malignant and terrifying energy. Jason could feel his own soul tremble before that creature. The creature, with a deep, guttural voice like the roar of an ancestral monster, broke the silence, uttering a phrase that chilled Jason and Linda's blood. "You thought you had won! The battle is only just beginning!" The voice echoed through the trees, carrying with it the promise of incomparable pain and suffering. The creature raised a hand, and a sinister black light emerged from its fingertips, radiating an oppressive and malevolent energy, which enveloped Jason and Linda, trapping them in a circle of darkness. The creature dissolved back into the shadows, disappearing among the trees, leaving Jason and Linda trapped in a new snare, more powerful and more terrifying than any they had faced before. The struggle for survival and for love had reached a new level, a level of unimaginable horror and suspense, leaving a terrible and suspenseful hook for the next episode. What would this new threat be? Who was this powerful and mysterious creature? And would Jason and Linda be able to survive this new and terrible challenge? The silent forest guarded the secret, and the future of Jason and Linda hung by a thread.